tongue is numb, the current's clean, your dog is dead, it's a Ponzi screen. Ponzi screen, Ponzi screen, because it's just something to do.
Okay, this is being recorded when Donald Trump is still alive.
Correct.
This
Donald John Trump alive
He is
currently.
still alive, and I think that this is important. I don't like to, we don't talk about this sort of political stuff too much, but I just have been thinking about it so much. So if we're doing a little check-in, this has basically been my entire past 5 or 6 days, has just been thinking about the president having coronavirus. That's all I've been doing besides working, is just thinking about this. And even when I should be working, I'm just thinking about this. And this particular moment is strange because he just let himself out of the hospital, and everyone is calling him invincible, and nobody on his team is acknowledging the fact that it is going to get significantly worse now.
Yes. Everybody across the board seems to imply that the first couple days of getting coronavirus is unpleasant, but maybe not be terrible, and then you hit a trench. A Marianas Trench of shittiness after that.
No, I'm a big fan of this. I think it really boosts street cred. I grew up during the Tupac era, and I remember when he got shot a bunch of times, leaving a studio in New York City, and then checked himself out of the hospital, and then went to Jasmine Guy's house to hang out. Jasmine Guy, the star of A Different World, so that he could recoup safely among his friends and peers. And I feel, that's what Trump is doing. Like, sure, he got cooties, he got corona cooties, and he checked himself out of Walter Reed Hospital and went back to where he feels safe, the White House.
He's going to Stanley Shera's house in the sky.
Yeah. No, it's honestly, I think this has been good for him. Not for his political aspirations or his life or anything like that, but specifically his face. Because I don't know if you guys have noticed, but a lot of the news coverage has been that he's had to take various versions of steroids. And I've got to say, as a friend who has ulcerative colitis, which is a autoimmune disease that often necessitates steroids, what happens is you usually get puffy face.
Oh, yeah.
And right now, Donald Trump has puffy face. But the thing is, his face was too droopy before. He had too much of a vagina neck situation going on. So the fact that his face is just a little bit more filled out, he's got a little bit more it's called moon face, when you have a kind of a big round steroid.
Sure,
face.
It's like a 360 filler for his whole face. It looks great. I mean, it looks great. He looks plump.
Exactly.
He looks like a plump peach emoji.
Also, also the thing, the man is usually a maniac, right? Like, this guy is a madman. But to say I haven't felt this good in 20 years is just so explicitly a response to steroids.
Yeah.
This man is full of bluster and mania and says dumb shit, but that's the drugs talking, man. That is, I don't know what else it could be.
Dude, I love steroids. I'm 100% on board with taking. I used to have to take prednisone when I would get. I had terrible asthma and pneumonia sometimes when I was little, and I would take prednisone. And I'm like a bony little bird boy, and yet I would take a couple of these pills and be like, it's time to do 10 push-ups for no reason.
Yeah.
No, this is exactly what happened to my friend Carrie, where she would call me at 2 a.m. and be like, "Yeah, I'm cleaning my craft room. I just took some prednisone." He is just high on the good stuff right now, and he feels invincible.
It's
yeah,
really
you do.
Cool.
You feel bulletproof for a couple hours. So, this is this productive window he's got before the cytokine storm kicks in and he drowns in his own fluids.
Right?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. I think here's my theory. I think if he does die, I think it's going to be a little bit anticlimactic, because realistically, it's just going to be in his sleep. Like we're just going. All of us probably, because we're all on the East Coast, are probably just going to wake up one day and be like, the president died in his sleep because he probably couldn't breathe. He just had the end result of what every weirdo who doesn't actually help their sleep apnea does. Just fucking, just choked on his own fucking throat.
But like that, doesn't that the idea of like Trump running full steam ahead, like alleging that he's going to burn down the entire democracy with voter fraud allegations, get a sixth Supreme Court justice seat in, just like destroy like a senile, like stuttering, bumbling old man in a debate, doing all these things on full force, and then immediately like tripping, falling down, shitting his pants, and breaking his neck 5 feet before the finish line. I love it. I don't know. There's something about it that feels very satisfying.
Sure, he pushed it to the limit. Like,
Yeah.
I would do a montage of this with that song from Scarface playing.
Yeah. No, he did, and he's gonna be like the guy of the YouTube video of the guy who's like about to win a stage race in the Tour de France, but he's like 100 meters away, and he does the like, yes, and then he falls over and does not win that stage race.
Yeah, it might not be about the end goal, but it is the journey, and he's absolutely lived the journey.
For me, I feel like Donald Trump was like, he's saying, you're going to be so tired. You're going to win so much. You're going to be tired of winning. Maybe the person who was really tired of winning was Donald Trump himself.
Oh, David.
That's
Well,
what he's
Yeah.
killing.
As an advocate, he believes in positive mental attitude and sort of like your thoughts governing your reality. So then if that's the case, he brought the sickness upon himself with negative thoughts. Like if he
Right.
had powerful enough mental power, he would cure himself of coronavirus.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he's just been fucking with a little bit too much chaos magic. He got like some good vibes off of that, or some productive vibes, but now he's just getting the universal just sort of like whiplash right back. But we'll see, everybody. We'll see what happens. Out of the hospital for now, but who knows? Who literally knows?
This coronavirus announcement happened just as people were discussing having Donald Trump Jr. run for office in Pennsylvania. That was his hubris moment. Where
Yeah.
he said,
What?
That was his moment of hubris, where he said, yes, I think that my son, who I trust with nothing, should run for office. That was the moment where where Donald Trump became president. And that's I don't know. I just think it's a very strange time, particularly. Obviously, after we finish recording, there will be new updates within hours. And when this comes out, it's going to be a completely different scenario. I'm sure the vice presidential debates will have happened. But
Yeah.
for now, this is such a particularly bleak time to be a supporter of Donald Trump, because you have such a false sense of hope right now. And they just feel like there's just like Ben Shapiro comparing him to just like this like comeback king in like a boxing match, and just Ben Garrison, I'm sure, is like jerking off, and there's just like some really it's a strange moment. That's all I have to say, guys. How you guys doing?
I'm feeling good, man. I'm stocking up on provisions for the winter, just really thinking about the commodities that I'll need as we move into like a Mad Max season for me. An Arctic blast Mad Max season for me. I got my rugs, I got my plants. Those are the things I need. I got new water filters,
Nice.
Yeah,
Nice.
for my Brita.
Nice.
I'm
You
good.
don't trust
yeah.
that New York City water?
Dude, I don't. Come on. Even when people say it's the best water in the world, I'm like, are the pipes the best?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. It's like, yeah. Well, it's
That's
kind of like,
that's such a good hole in their argument. That's so precise.
It's a hole like a pipe.
well, I mean, everywhere we go, we've got this like illusion of hygiene and cleanliness. It's like you get on the subway and they're like, "Oh, don't worry, we closed the subway from midnight to 2 a.m. and we wiped everything down." And then all you need is one coronavirus person to walk in there and like breathe. And it doesn't
Right.
matter that they
Yeah.
wiped it all down. It's like, oh, our water's the best. Our pipes are covered in feces. Like,
The best,
Hey,
the best water, lead pipes.
I do love that subway analogy because you know that there's got to have been a time where like the L has been at 8th Avenue. It's at its little home. It's hanging out. Everybody just gave it a nice wipe down. And then like a man with a literal pig pen like esque cloud follows and just sits down and just and then, like a big thing of dust just goes around him and it turns into the disgusting car again. And it's just like, well, that was fun for when it lasted.
so I'm freaked out about drinking tap water because, and I love the idea that we have tap water. It feels like water should be one of those things that's free always and should be accessible to everyone and clean. That's the hallmark of like a good civilization. But
Yeah.
I grew up in DC. I remember in Washington, there was this huge scare about water, like the system not being clean. And then after that scare, this was like the early 90s, maybe late 80s. After that scare, my family got the big bottles of water delivered.
Nice.
And I remember the
Uh-huh.
very moment where bottled water stopped being this designer commodity. Like
Yeah.
before that, it was fashionable people in like the hip gay neighborhoods that were drinking Perrier. And then
Mhm.
after this water crisis, bottled water became like ubiquitous. It became something that normal for everyone to purchase. And like we lost this idea that it was something that should be free.
Yeah. That honestly is one of the. It is such a tragedy because it is so ingrained in people's minds now. Like, I mean, Gabe, David, I'm sure you guys have like been in a situation where you'll be at like a fast casual place like Chipotle or Qdoba or something like
That's
that.
where I
Oh,
spend
maybe.
87% of my day.
Yeah.
Yeah, one of the 4 places that I eat consistently, and you'll go and you'll get your bowl, and you'll be behind somebody, and you'll see behind you there is the soda machine that has the little water.
Oh, yeah.
You can get plenty of just available water right there. You can ask the person at the counter for a clear cup, and they'll give it to you.
Yes, they will.
And you'll have water, and you'll watch that person in front of you with a dead look in their face just be like, Poland Spring, please. And that's just and like it's like they don't. It's like the idea of just it being this free thing that's accessible and everything. It's just like it's on the downfall.
Yeah. You go with the brand over, and it's the exact same product. And
Qdoba
Poland-
socialism, man. That was the, that's the dream.
Yeah. By the way, anybody in the greater New York City area, if you are thirsty and you do not have access to water, go into the Chipotle and just ask for water because they'll give it to you. What a lifesaver it's been this entire summer. The Chipotle has been excellent, especially when there's been nowhere to sit and you need water.
Okay, we need to we've been talking about getting advertisers for this show. We just have to just suck it up and get Qdoba and Chipotle. I think we need to get both of them because we've given more business shout outs to those two fast casual restaurants than I think anyone. I think that they would like having both of them on there.
No, look, we're sponsored by the Qdoba on Knickerbocker and Myrtle.
Yeah.
All right, shout out to them, and also a big thumbs down for letting people order 3 bowls at one time while they're fucking FaceTiming with their dumb mom, and they're like, "What do you want? What do you want?" And like, it takes fucking 10 minutes to have one person go through the line, and I'm sitting there super hungry because I don't have any other food in my house. So shout out to them.
That's probably an
You know?
essential worker or someone saving a mom's life by not going outside. Danny, how do you feel about that?
Shut up, David. Shut up.
I think the point of this is that we've got to prep, and that person should have prepped
Mhm.
before they left the house.
Mm-hmm.
Dude,
Mm.
How are you
These
two? How
people.
are you preppers doing?
Um,
I mean, I'm good. I'm prepping my space for a new sewing machine table. I'm excited for that. I'm ready to get that in my life. I'm gonna visit Seattle at the end of the month or mid end of the month, so I can report to you guys how on fire or not on fire it is. But luckily, by that time, we will have entered the dark zone,
uh-huh.
as it is referred to in the Pacific Northwest.
The dark
I know you,
zone
the dark zone.
As is
Um,
predicted in the prophecies.
yeah, yeah.
is that
I
is
know
that
it's
just like post-election blues? Is that just when people are sad about they can't work on their campaigns anymore? Is that what the dark times are? Or is it like a meteorological thing?
it's a longitudinal thing. We're
Oh,
we're Seattle.
it's just dark.
Seattle's literally, yeah, it's literally dark.
Oh, it's just
Like
dark.
Seattle,
Oh, okay.
it's just literally dark. It's literally dark. I don't, I can't remember if I've even mentioned this, but like there was a point in my life when I was 13 where it was like November or later or something like that, and I was like, man, why do I get sad in the winters? And it's because it's fucking dark at 4:30 p.m. where it's like high up. It's way higher up than New York. Like New York New York City
Yeah.
is like on the same plane as like Northern California.
Yeah.
And DC is probably in line with like San Francisco or even a little bit below there.
Yeah.
So like all it doesn't, I mean, like, could you imagine being in fucking like Ireland or like Stockholm where it gets dark at like 3 or 2:30 p.m.?
I think what Danny is
Ugh.
trying to say is America is tilted. It's getting tilted.
Getting tilted, getting twisty.
getting twisted America. I don't know what the point of that joke was. It's just so look, we have a program. We want to talk about some stuff that's all wild and exciting and a little frightening. We want to talk about commodities today. Gabe alluded to it earlier. And the first commodity that we're going to look at is a check-in from our FinCEN Files friends. And
But David, before we go any further though,
yeah,
just a quick refresher to anybody. What's a commodity? Commodity is stuff. Commodities are stuff. Okay?
yeah.
So it's shit like gold, it's shit like oil. Oil's a commodity. What else is a commodity?
Pork bellies.
Pork bellies,
Timber.
timber, all that stuff. So when we talk about commodities, we're talking about stuff, the opposite of securities.
Yeah. So commodities are things that have a value, right?
Mhm.
These are things that have usually raw materials that have some value, whose value changes in price depending on the mood ring of the stock market, right?
Yeah.
So a big thing happened. We last episode we talked about the FinCEN files, and or 2 episodes ago or whatever, we made a mistake in putting out the most recent audio. Everyone, apologies for that. I blame my cat and myself, but really I blame Donald Trump. And the FinCEN files were a big leak that BuzzFeed and a few other international journalists at the International Consortium of Investigative Journalists revealing the level of the financial, what's it called? FinCEN. What does it stand for, folks? It is a U.S. federal agency, regulatory agency that's supposed to track money laundering in the United States. Okay, and FinCEN basically has received huge swaths of suspicious activity reports of potential money laundering and has largely ignored them. And the documents that were received by BuzzFeed and folks were all laying out some of the wildest suspicious activity reports.
Yes.
And we talked about it a little bit when we spoke about the episode, but one story that has come out recently, and I assume that there will be more coming out soon. This is by Kyra Gurney, and this is called the FinCEN Files Investigations into the Gold Trade from Around the World. Okay? Gold companies are involved in roughly a quarter of all suspect transactions across the FinCEN files. Okay?
Yeah.
So all 25% of all of these alleged money laundering activities involve gold somehow. Danny, your response.
I gotta say they're smart, they're cool. I'm glad they've chosen the shiniest and most appealing of these things to turn their blood money into something that they can actually spend. As we all know, gold is amazing. You can make leaf out of it.
Yep.
It's what can I say? It's gold. It's lovely, but gold is not just a thing that has value in that it is shiny and what have you. It is also concentrated in its value. There is a scarce amount of gold. So if you have $1 million, $2 million, $3 million, if you put that amount of money into physical bills, it's big, it's bulky, it's hard to move. Also, it's incredibly traceable. But gold is small. It's not necessarily light, but a gold bar, that's taking $1 million cash that's like this big, and then taking it and making it this big. You know what I'm talking about?
One of the reasons why you love gold is its space efficiency, is what you're saying.
It is incredibly space efficient. There's the known gold on the planet could fit under the base of the Eiffel Tower. That's how much gold there is. So you have to imagine. Picture it in your head. There's not a lot of gold. And this is incredibly valuable if you're like a narco trafficker, a drug trafficker type, because you are sometimes dealing in the hundreds of millions of dollars, and you need to get that money into a liquid form. And it's incredibly efficient to do that via gold. And it's also not monitored really at all. There's lots of there's actually an incredibly good episode on Netflix, actually, on Dirty Money about gold, where they basically explain that, like, if you can take gold and launder it through these sort of agencies in, like, South America, and they will vouch for this money not being, like, trafficked money, and then it's gone into thin air. It turns into gold. There's very little tracking on it. You can take that gold, melt it down, turn it into spot gold, and just turns into money.
I mean, I like to get paid exclusively in apartheid era South African cougar ants for all of my labor.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because it's cool. Is that why, Gabe? What?
Oh, it's just dope. They're just dope gold coins.
Yeah.
Do you know what a Kruger ant is, David?
I have no idea what a cougar ant is, man. I'm a pacifist. I don't believe in that.
Oh, dude, Kruger ants they're tight. They're like these little coins. They're like probably like this big.
Cool.
And
that's like the size of a quarter, is what you're holding up.
More like an old fashioned dollar. No, like the inside.
Oh.
Like the like an old fashioned dollar.
Listeners
coin.
of the podcast, listeners of the podcast are just like imagining like a big fish situation where Danny is just like every single time he reimagines the size of the cougar ant, it's just a bigger and bigger. So it's about a quarter size, and
it's a dollar. It's a dollar. Did I tell you about my friend who found a sock full of Kruger ants once?
No, that sounds pretty. This sounds like the beginning of a great adventure movie.
Yeah,
he was in his grandmother's attic cleaning it out, and he just found a small sock full of like maybe 7 to 10 Kruger ants.
That friend, Elon Musk.
Yeah,
and with those Kruger ants, he flipped them, and then he flipped them, and then he flipped them.
No, he was crazy, man. I'm not gonna say his name, but he was like this weird, spindly gay man. He weighed like maybe 140 pounds soaking wet. He loved guns, and he would steal from American Apparel constantly. He would just every once in a while he would just run out of money, and he'd just cash in one of his Kruger ants. It was really funny.
Are you saying that like you're not gonna say his name because it's so hard to pronounce in Afrikaans?
Yeah. Hey, me friend David. Yeah.
Wow, I've actually have no idea what a South African accent really sounds like. So, but look, let's get back to the story at hand. That's a wild ass story. If your friend wants to hang out sometime, tell him not to call me. So this basically $2 trillion of these FinCEN files and payments that banks have flagged as suspicious. 514.9 billion in transactions involved gold companies. You're exactly right. It is a favored vehicle for money laundering. And here are some of the stories that the FinCEN files came up with. There's one for every continent except for Antarctica. So there's one in a freelance journalist in Liberia reported on suspicious transactions involving a local gold company. I think the idea of money laundering happening in a corrupt African nation is almost that's not even really news at this point. But
Sure.
in 2013, Standard Chartered Bank filed a suspicious activity report. This is quoting directly from them on more than $11 million in transactions involving this company called Golden Vision Trading, in part because some of the transactions were in round dollar amounts, which the bank wrote as a known vehicle for money laundering.
No,
And
can't we just change that and say instead of can't we just add like a 0.97 at the end of these so that it seems like it's not round anymore?
yeah, just make it let's make it 10.99.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, David.
Just use
The
retail
original-
tricks.
The original 99-cent option was actually a money laundering avoidance scheme.
Yeah. No, David, you're burying the lead on this, because when I read this goddamn article, I fucking made a screenshot because I thought this was so fucking fantastic. The guy who came up with this, his name is Aloysius David, which is weird on its own. But the way he spelled Aloysius is Alloy. Alloysius. This is too good.
He's the
You
journalist.
could not write.
He's the journalist, Danny. That's the journalist, not the
You
guy.
couldn't- The guy talking about gold, his name is Alloy? What are you fucking kidding me? This is perfect.
Have you guys heard of the theory that your name determines your career? You know what I'm talking about? Has anyone heard this before? I mean, my name is David Eisenberg, which is what made me a financial journalist. But so I guess Aloysius David had the same thing in mind, where he's like, I am going to report on alloys because he's alloylicious.
I can only talk about metals. It's great.
Okay, enough of making fun of an African person's name. Let's move on. Gabe is giving the evil eye right now.
Yeah.
Like, why are you making fun of this dude's name? This is.
I'm not making fun. It's a cool name, but it's like that's amazing. I refuse to apologize for a man being named Alloy. It's perfect.
Okay, well, we're half of the podcast is getting canceled by the other half right now. Some cool laser noises. That signifies canceling, I guess. Next region, Asia and the Middle East. And this, so basically, another dozens of transactions that were flagged by a reporter from the Indian Express, named Shyamlal Yadav. Suspicious activity between Dubai-based gold trader Kaloti and several Indian companies. Directly quoting, Indian authorities seized gold from one of these companies, Surana Corporation, in 2013 for alleged violations of import law, although the investigation was later closed due to insufficient evidence. Kaloti said it had ceased trading with Surana Corporation in 2013 and never exported gold to the company. We just stopped it. It's done. We didn't do anything wrong. We stopped.
I mean, that's just classic Dubai shit, you know. Love to hear it.
That is some Dubai shit for sure. You know there's an on the border in Dubai?
What?
There's an on the border Mexican grill in Dubai. I think Danny, you might. Yeah.
Wait, what?
Yeah.
Did Anthony
There's a
Bourdain
fast
visit
cat-
this place? How do we know about this place? Is there an episode of the Taco Chronicles where they go to Dubai?
They give out free water at that on the border, actually.
Yeah,
I mean,
valuable
and they-
commodity in Dubai.
Yeah.
they're a peacekeeper. They're a peacekeeping organization then, because that place not a ton of water.
In Sex and the City too, they mostly just ate at the on the border. Didn't that one go in Dubai? Wasn't that where that was? No one knows.
Is it?
No one knows here because we're all boys.
Is it? Is it
Uh,
on the border? On the border with Yemen? On the border with Oman? On the border with
yeah,
Qatar?
just like yeah, just like every single customer walks in, it's like, what border? What border?
yeah.
To which border do they refer?
Yeah.
Okay, so looking into Europe, looks like there were these were some reporters within the investigative unit of Switzerland's Tamedia reported on divisions among Swiss gold refiners over concerns about the Swiss refiner Valcambi's business relationship with Colotti, the same Colotti from the last reference. ICIG. So these reporters and Tamedia and other media organizations reported on a previously undisclosed U.S. investigation into Colotti. Colotti sounds like they're in the middle of it all, baby, for alleged money laundering. But the Colotti denies any wrongdoing. But they really seem like there's just the hub. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, and of course it happens in Switzerland, I mean, they're not famous for holding any it's not like they're famous for holding like a weird kind of fascist regime's gold unmarked in one of their patented bank accounts that has no information that explains who owns it.
I think you can just presume that any transaction that occurs between Switzerland and the UAE is just inherently corrupt. Like there will be, even if it is a Venmo payment for $5, there will be some blood money in there somehow.
I mean, the greatest trick they ever pulled was to rebrand Morally Bankrupt as neutral.
Ooh.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Whoa.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Like, yeah. So that's my thing with Switzerland. They're probably the worst.
That's gonna go on. That was a good quote, man. That's gonna go in your memorable quotes section. Okay.
Swish. I think on our 60 episodes, I've gotten maybe 4 or 5 memorable quotes so far.
That's pretty good. I think I'm still at 2, and I do 60% of the talking. So. So moving on to Latin America, the last region of the world. I guess they didn't mention
that's the big boy.
In Colombia, is a journalist named Pilar Cortez Rodriguez, reported as part of a collaboration between a few other Latin American outfits. Wrote about this guy CIJ Gutierrez, a gold company at the center of a money laundering investigation, and the Colombian bank Banco Colombia. Colombian
Banco Colombia.
They combined the two. Colombian prosecutors were concerned about a special Bancolombia procedure that allowed CIJ Gutierrez to deal in large sums of cash, which is harder to trace.
Yep.
And they obviously the bank denied. The Bank of Colombia has not been accused of any wrongdoing, and lawyers for the individuals associated with CIJ Gutierrez have insisted that their clients are innocent, of course. So it looks like those are some of the big stories. But the big thing is to know is that gold could very well be 25% of all money laundering that takes place globally. That's our first commodity. That's the one that we all love, folks.
You love to see it. Gold is, and I mean, and there's not too much you can do about it because again, you can get like a certified gold bar from Pomp Suisse or like Royal Canadian Gold Minting and have it imprinted and be like, oh, this is 3/9 fine gold, et cetera, et cetera. It has a number on it, whatever. But then just get an oxyacetylene torch, melt it down, and then you just got spot gold, baby. Completely anonymous.
Something that Ponzi Scream is not advocating for on the record.
Yeah.
So
definitely what type of definitely we're not at this is sponsored by torches that melt gold. We should get I think I found our new sponsor, boys.
Yeah. Also, for what it's worth, like a Roku remote amount of gold is like $30,000 worth of gold. So none of our followers are gonna have any kind of not to call our followers poor, but good luck. If you've got that amount of gold, then I that you're doing better than me.
Ponzi Scream, the podcast for how to commit a Ponzi scheme.
Yeah.
So next story, this is another story on commodities. What I think is just interesting about these three stories is it's looking at commodity extraction and the uses of commodities in three kind of different ways of criminality, I think. And this next one is far more sober than the last one. This is Apple and Google and Tesla and Microsoft were named in a lawsuit over Congolese child Cobalt mining deaths. So, So the plaintiffs are seemingly 12 or 13 individual children.
Sweet.
Have been
Operation Nimble Fingers. So this the lawsuit for kids, huh? And what's happening to these children in the Democratic Republic of Congo?
The Democratic Republic of Congo.
Yeah, kids on the beat. Kids on the beat. Beat kids. Beat kids.
They have sued Apple, Google, Dell, Microsoft, and Tesla for human rights violations. So basically, there's some research done by an anti-slavery economist accuses the companies of aiding and abetting in the death and serious injury of children whom they claim were working in cobalt mines in their supply chain. So kind of everyone, like, that's the thing, is some of the we all kind of knew this, right? Like, we all
Dude, I've seen Snowpiercer. I know what happens. You get to the front of the engine, and then hidden in the floorboards of the main room are little kids with nimble fingers who are working in the heart of the beast. And the heart of all of our supply chains requires us to extract, precious metals and other commodities from incredibly volatile and dangerous and precarious environments. And who better to do that than little kids that can crawl into tiny holes deep into the bowels of the earth?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah, and if anybody isn't able to wrap their mind around this, and you have seen the movie Uncut Gems, just imagine the opening sequence where they're getting the uncut gem, essentially.
Right, and now now turn all of those actors into toddlers.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah, and it's like, and the caves are smaller and shittier, and it's and at a greater scale too, it's
so 60% of cobalt originates in the DRC, one of the poorest and most unstable countries in the world. And I think in the opening of Uncut Gems, it was taking place in Ethiopia or Kenya. Both of those countries are relatively far better off than DRC. I mean, DRC has been, and that's kind of one of the craziest things, actually, is that the lawsuit spends pages detailing the extreme extractive colonialism and horrible treatment of the colonial powers by foreign of the DRC by colonial powers. That doesn't usually go in a criminal complaint. Criminal complaints don't have sentences like, in the late 1880s, King Leopold II of Belgium seized the Congo as his personal private property in his bid to be a colonial power. That's not in most complaints. They spend so much, and said the horrors of this period are graphically depicted in Adam Hochschild's book King Leopold's Ghosts, as well as in Joseph Conrad's Heart of Darkness. This is a legal filing, and they're referencing Joseph Conrad.
So I want to get this is interesting because that the moment in history where Belgium took over the Congo and created such mass suffering was the moment where bicycles became ubiquitous in the post-industrial West. So bicycles were seen as a great liberating force, right? They were the iPhone of the time, because young women could now freely ride around on their own, and it was a democratic tool, right? It helped
Mhm.
people move and be free and go to salons and drink coffee and just not be stuck at
Be
home.
be hipsters.
Be
Yeah, on
hipsters,
their
the
bicycles.
OG fixed gear bicycle riding hipsters.
Yeah, yeah.
And what did they need for this? They needed rubber for their tires. So where do we get the rubber
Yes.
from? You get the rubber from the rubber trees in the Congo. Who is going to go and extract all that rubber? You need to have slaves to do it, whether in name or just de facto. And so all of these things that have helped liberate one small part of society or the world
Mhm.
is extracted from the raw resources and through slave labor. And all of our smartphones now have the blood of little nimble fingered Congolese children flowing through them.
It's almost
David's face.
like we that's the thing. Is like this complaint is one of the most eye-popping complaints I've ever seen. There's maybe a dozen images of all of these severe permanent leg injuries and other
Mhm.
injuries. Mangled permanently arms of 10-year-old children, 12-year-old children. That's all over this complaint. You don't usually have photos in it.
Compound fractures, as far as the eye can see, just
Yeah.
really bad.
Yeah, something. Yeah, exactly. It looks at and exposes this, but it's kind of like, I don't know. Any of you, we've all kind of been in conversations with any normal person, and people just in the West kind of know this, but
Mhm.
to see it is kind of another thing. It's a. I'll share the complaint in the link episode because it's really worth looking at, and they're suing these big tech companies under international human rights law. There's an American law that basically says if you are a company that's involved in human trafficking, you can be criminally liable for the child, or just in child trafficking, you can be criminally liable for that. And basically, they're alleging that the tech companies knew, had active knowledge, specific knowledge that they were involved in this child cobalt mining.
So if they don't know, it's kind of like when Trump has infected everyone in the Rose Garden with coronavirus, and yet they don't call all the guests and do contact tracing on them. And so the sin is a sin of omission, where it's like the of course they should be following the whole, like, this is contact tracing for cobalt. Where is the
Right.
cobalt coming
Yeah.
from? Where, like,
Yeah.
obviously you need it. It is the foundation of the ingredients that you need to make a smartphone. How can you not know where it comes from? It's not like these mines are on wheels and that they're constantly moving around. It's not like they live in, like, there's a fog that is impenetrable where you can't find the exact GPS coordinates of these mines. Like, we know where the
Exactly.
cobalt's coming from. So
Yeah, it's so acute. It's so acute in its location, because so much of all precious metals, for that matter, whether it's gold, lithium, cobalt,
Yeah.
a lot of that shit comes from Africa. There's no cobalt mines in Tennessee, I don't think.
Yeah.
So there's no. It's like when Tim Cook or Bill Gates or any of these people who have any kind of sway be like, "Oh, we couldn't have possibly known." It's just it's like saying, Really?
Yeah.
You didn't think anything fishy was happening in the Democratic Republic of the Congo, a place that has been historically fucked with. It's like it's gross incompetence.
Right, and it's fucked
For-
with by design because the products there are so valuable to the rest of civilization that to have regulations there, to have labor rights there, would be a wrench in the machine.
Absolutely. I mean, there's plenty of people in Tennessee who I'm sure would love to have like a job mining cobalt with a living wage and like reasonable health and safety benefits. Like it's not that mining itself is inherently a problematic endeavor. This is something that needs to be done, and if done correctly, can be a reasonable path and a reasonable career of a job. The problem is obviously that this is children, and they're being paid in just starvation wages. The companies themselves had really interesting quotes in this Guardian article that covered the complaint by Annie Kelly. And I want to read Apple's. Apple is deeply committed to the responsible sourcing of materials that go into our products. Yeah, good start. We've led the industry by establishing the strictest standards for our suppliers and are constantly working to raise the bar for ourselves and the industry. I'm very curious to hear what the residents of Zhengzhou, China have to say about that. In 2014, we were the first to start mapping our cobalt supply chain to the mine level, and since 2016, we have published a full list of our identified cobalt refiners every year, 100% of which are participating in the independent third-party audits. If a refiner is unable or unwilling to meet our standards, they will be removed from our supply chain. We've removed 6 cobalt refiners in 2019. Okay.
A bunch of rotten apples.
Yeah.
Oh boy, yeah, it's someone.
A half dozen rotten apples, guys.
Yeah, and I mean, like, it's funny too because you think about it, and they love hiding behind the third party contractor thing. You know,
Always.
think about it. If you were Apple, and your products are highly dependent on these rechargeable batteries, you would think to yourself, honestly, what we got to do, we just have to set up some sort of base in these places, because honestly, our products are so dependent that it is a liability for us to not be there. But they know they fucking can't, because these places are just unregulated hellholes, and they're just it stinks. It stinks.
Yeah, and lithium, it's like a similarly like morally compromised situation where there's a reasonable suspicion that firms like Tesla had a knowledge, at least, of the coup that took place in Bolivia last year, and then with the cover-up that was kind of perpetuated by the Organization of American States and people in the American media. And all of this was in part because Evo Morales, the socialist president at the time, refused to some of the deals that all these multinational lithium mining companies wanted to impose on Bolivia to get some of its lithium mining done that would have been more exploitative towards his people. He wanted a better deal, basically, and he was being a tough negotiator. He was either going to nationalize it, like Allende did with copper, or he was going to have it just be a square deal, and something that wouldn't have human rights violations, which would have raised the prices for Tesla for its raw materials. And they could not do that. It's kind of the same thing where they are working to undermine human rights abroad in order to lower prices here and keep their profits for themselves, instead of just taking the cut. I don't know what else to say about this one. This one's horrible. It's just another instance of just these commodities. This is a different use of commodities than the gold one, in the sense that this is strictly related to its extraction.
It's enough on the nose that literally this was the subject matter and topic of the 2010 James Bond movie Quantum of Solace, where they were literally talking about lithium mines being extracted, and that's why they were trying to get them.
That's what that was. Oh, okay. I'm gonna go watch that.
Yeah.
Learn something about lithium. So the last commodity push that we want to examine is not the abuse of the commodity as a trading currency through money laundering, not the extraction of the commodity itself, but in the labeling of a product as a commodity. I think that this is not something that involves a criminality per se, but I think that it deserves it, in my opinion. So the headline from Bloomberg and from Mint and Wall Street Journal: Wall Street is set to start trading in a new commodity, water.
Hell yeah. That drip, drip, drip.
Yeah.
We're about to start trading futures contracts on California's water supply.
Sick. After record forest fires, what should we do, guys? You guys are constantly in a drought and you're wasting all your water. Why don't we monetize it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
This one is I feel like the water trading idea has a real chaotic energy to it because they're trying to impose, like a degree of control and like just a degree of control to how water works. And I took a water control and planning class, in college. It was like my senior.
Wow.
I know, it was my senior capstone. And the one thing that I really was able to take away from it is that very plainly there are parts of the world that are water rich, and there are parts that aren't. And it's not something that you can easily just kind of like pick up and take to another place without it costing a lot and without it just being a huge burden. All the water in California, for example, is coming from the Colorado River. And it is such a drain on the Colorado River that it is actually, lessening it year after year after year, to the point where like California's water scarcity is something that will come into play probably in the next 30 years.
Do you guys know that the Colorado River used to actually reach the Pacific Ocean?
Really?
Yeah.
Of course it did.
Yeah.
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 So
Yeah.
So almost according to the article, almost 2/3 of the world's population is expected to face water shortages by 2025. Also, the article itself is almost an exact cut and paste of the press release that this firm that is creating these waters futures. So
Sick. So this is sponsored content.
essentially, yeah. Right. Okay. So I want to take a step back. Like let's first define what a waters future is. Okay. So a waters future would essentially a futures contract is a type of investment where you are betting on a contingency happening in the future. Okay.
Yeah.
And it is often used to counterweigh potential bad things happening, the opposite from happening. Okay. So this is something that is these futures contracts are hedge instruments. That's what it right. So that's what it's supposed to do. It's supposed to counteract what other forces might happen in the economy. Generally open to firms such as food or agricultural producers, land lease owners, municipalities, and public water agencies. So the idea behind this futures contract is those folks, food or agriculture producers, when water gets scarce, they will invest in future water, like water futures, which essentially rise when the price of water is high. Okay. So
Yeah.
what they will be able to do is both be the buyer and seller of water to themselves, essentially. By these folks, like food and agriculture producers, landowners, they are some of the biggest consumers of water themselves. Okay.
So is it like OPEC or oil, but instead of, Saudi Arabia being one end of it, it would be if like Saudi Arabia was the whole part of it?
Sort of. Yeah. It's you are both parts of, you are the whole supply chain. Okay. And that's what the waters futures contracts is allowed. I mean, anyone can invest in these in theory, but the article and the press release that CME put out said that it would be particularly useful for these firms who have to buy the water. And so in theory, if you have a waters futures contract, okay, you have a stake in the price of water in the future. And that will also help you predict the price of water in the future, which means that when the price of water in the future gets to a certain price, that's affecting you as a landowner because all of a sudden your costs are higher, but you own this hedging instrument, these waters futures, to counterbalance that, to allow you to still be able to survive in a high water, an expensive water environment. Okay? Does that make sense?
kind of. I feel like it is. It still feels so weird and detached from reality because it's just one of those things where I mean, I mean, when you talk about oil being a commodity, it's just sort of like you could conceivably think of a world where it's like, okay, maybe no oil could ever be extracted or burned or whatever. It's a weird world for sure, but it's a possibility. But when they're talking about like water, where it's like it's hard to put it to visualize it in the market like that because it's like no, you don't understand. You if people don't drink this for like 3 days, they die.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, the bees need the water, the flowers need the water. The water's
Yeah,
in
yeah.
the clouds, the trees. Like it's we need it to wash ourselves, we need it for our clothes. It's like this. You cannot have a civilization without it. It
It
feels
needs to go in our lead pipes.
yeah, this is a Mad
Yeah.
Max like Fury Road thing where when you commodify it and it can be monopolized by a group of people, it's like I think of a Morton Joe on top of his tower, just distributing it willy-nilly.
Yeah.
So the contracts are tied to California's $1.1 billion water market, which will launch.
Yeah.
It's supposed to launch late this year, pending regulatory review. And currently, about 40% of water is consumed in the state by crop production, folks. So
Yeah.
yeah,
By your
It's
fucking almonds for almond milk. So
Yeah.
wasteful.
your fucking
Yeah.
almond milk.
No, that yeah. It's one of those things where you have to sort of like hold your tongue when you're talking about it because like it could be very tempting to just be like, "Oh, people waste water so much. It's so bad or whatever, blah blah blah." But then you think about walnut producers specifically, like legumes in California, and those trees take so much water for just like this tiny little thing and they absolutely they absolutely capitalize off of it and just completely gerrymandered that system to their own advantage, and it's just one of those things where the system cannot imagine us not having walnuts
Yeah.
or whatever.
So what
it's
this
like
so what this
yeah.
would allow for is those who have capital to invest in water futures, which is largely the key 40% consumers of water currently in industrial agricultural production, will be able to hedge the increasing cost of water, which is just the sentence itself or the phrase itself, increasing cost of water, should all rub us the wrong way because the idea of
Mhm.
water being a price, like what Gabe's family was discussing, is something that should be, back when there were suspicions about DC's drinking water being bad, that should raise red flags in our minds anyways. But when those folks have access to a hedging instrument to make water cheaper basically for themselves in the aggregate, okay, because they're going to be
Mhm.
making money off of the higher price, but also paying the higher cost on both sides. They're sweetening the pot for themselves either way.
Yeah.
But the other 60% of people will not have access to this hedging instrument. Bees will not have access to the hedging instruments.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Squirrels will not have access to the hedging instrument. Cacti, saguaro cacti, and Joshua trees will not have access to this hedging instrument.
What we're gonna have to do is befriend beavers, like I bring up every episode,
yeah,
and
right.
have them create
Back to the
natural
beaver.
reservoirs of water for us.
yeah. That's my hedging instrument. Is just chilling in the angry beaver's house.
And again, it's they're just playing no pun intended with fire, just because it's a really chaotic thing to try to control. Water is incredibly specific in how it interacts with certain areas of the country. Places like Portland, Oregon, have a really rich natural water source.
Congratulations.
Yes, beautiful water
Mhm.
source.
Yeah.
I've New York State, like you guys have mentioned, has a very good water source.
Very
It's
wet.
why-
It's got that WAP.
yeah, it's a wet ass water source. But again, places like California don't, and the desert doesn't, and it's just going to get more and more chaotic and exacerbated as climate change kind of continues.
Of course.
as well.
And the one person that came up in this story is our friend Michael Burry, who
Yes.
discussed water, the issue of investing in water or investing in farmland with water on site. He discussed it. He mentioned it in The Big Short as well. And he has since left the water and farm holdings market. But this is the problem with folks who see a problem and try to hedge and personally profit off of it through shorting, right? Like,
Yeah.
this is why ultimately Michael Burry is a very smart man but ultimately an antagonist or an anti-hero in the film The Big Short. This man is not a valiant person, because if you take what he did in The Big Short and you apply it to anything less esoteric and more directly of a trolley problem or some sort of ethical dilemma, such as water shortages, he is going to find a way to profit from him personally and then piece the fuck out. He is not actually going to try and look at it systemically. So he knows the things and is just trying to make money off of it, not trying to do the nice thing, do the good thing.
He's worried about his bag, son. It's all about rising, grinding, getting your bag, filling it with cougar rants.
Yeah. Yeah. And it is interesting because he got out of it, but moral of the story is treat anybody talking about water futures in a in a purely just sort of like speculative way. Treat them with an immense amount of skepticism in everything they say, and then
And disdain.
and with disdain, and compare it to like seeing somebody who recently got hit, like compared to somebody who's like on the ground having been hit by a car and they've got like I said, a compound fracture. It's the equivalent of a guy running up to that guy and being like, "Hey, I bet that guy's gonna get his leg chopped off. Do you want to bet me $50 that his leg gets chopped off?"
Right.
That's
right.
what it that's what it is. That's what it is.
Like
instead of helping them.
Their pessimism is a great it's a great resource, but they're using it to both accelerate and capitalize off of the worst possible case scenario instead of helping ameliorate the problem.
They've been blackpilled, man. It's a form of blackpilling.
Yeah.
Well, cool. I feel great. I'm in a good place to end. I think this is a perfect place to end the episode.
I'm really glad I mean, it's depressing, but I am always fascinated, and I'm always glad we can talk about these kinds of things, because it's lots of different versions of like a similar problem. And it's
Cobalt golden water. Cobalt golden water. That's what the giant miner in my remake of Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer is going to be singing about.
Yeah.
Some company propaganda. All right. Well, this has been Ponzi Scream. Good luck, everyone. Stay safe out there. Hopefully, the president will be dead next time when you hear this episode.
Rate, review, and subscribe. We love it.
Rate,
Smash the
review,
like button.
subscribe. Smash
5
the like.
stars.
Smash the follow. 5 stars.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Say hello to me.
All right.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Bye, fam.
All right. Bye.